meme on Instagram recently, and it was something about, it said something in the sense that um, people that are that either gossip about you, or that can never really give you a straight compliment when you're doing something right. It's because that they recognize their own failure through your success. So basically, because a lot of people know that they have potential, right? They have amazing ideas, but putting these ideas to work for them to become something bigger, or to actually succeed in something, it is a scary process.
Yeah, it is.
And it's not something that is given to everybody. So a lot of people will be threatened by the fact that, oh my God, like she's not your typical nurse. No offense to nurses, she's not your typical nurse. She's not your typical CPA, or person that works in administration. She's going for a goal that, honestly, for most of us our age, is not completely unattainable, but like a bit of a dream, right?
It's unorthodox.
Exactly. It's out of norm. It comes out of the ordinary, and being able to put the work in, so that every step that you take throughout your lifetime brings you closer to that one goal that you have, which is being an author. That will shakes the what's it called, the glass ceiling. It really shakes the glass ceiling, and it'll make a lot of people uncomfortable. And being an alpha female means taking charge of your own destiny and taking charge of your own path. And if that means, just pushing some people aside, it's not that I don't have love for you, but I'm doing me. And you should not feel, bad for doing that, because you watch out for you at the end of the day, right? If you don't put the work in for yourself, nobody's going to do it for you. And at the end of the day, everybody's going to look at you and say, hey, you should have done that. Nobody's going to push you to do it.
And I love the fact that you're saying, I'm doing me, because that was basically what I was doing with my blog. Like, I was like, I'm doing me for the first time ever. And that was scary. It is still scary now. Like, I'm not there yet. I haven't arrived yet, So everything I do right now to help my career, like, take a new level, everything is scary. Everything is scary. And I understand why people, like, it scares people to see other people around them, like, get their dreams.
Yeah.
You ask yourself, what am I not doing? Like,
why am I not doing it?
Why am I not doing it? I know for myself, I overthink too much. And one thing that will kill your dreams is, like, one, if you compare yourself to other people, and two, if you listen to people. Never listen to people unless you got people who hype you up. Listen to them, okay? And that's good. But don't listen to people who tell you that it's never been done before.
You should do it.
You should do it. Someone like you should do something else, or tell you, well, nobody in your family has done that. I don't know anyone who has done it and has succeeded. Like, don't listen to people.
Yeah, it'll kill your dreams.
It'll kill your dreams. Don't overthinking will kill your dreams. It'll just discourage you. Sometimes you just gotta Nike through it. Just do it.
Yeah, it's definitely that.
I have to remind myself of that every day. Like, I have to be my own, like, personal coach. I have to be that person that tells myself, like, keep going. And
keep pushing.
Exactly, and it's a fight. So I understand why people get scared of seeing other people succeeding. I understand why some people can feel threatened by someone else's success, because it does remind them of something that they're not doing. But instead of seeing it as something negative, we should learn from that. Like, okay, why am I feeling?
It should inspire you.
exactly. It's like, why am I feeling like this? Why am I not tapping into my potential? It's just that, just questions that you have to ask yourself, and that's not to say that I have all the answers to all the world's problems or that I can fix people's lives. My name is not Iyanla, but I'm just saying we have to ask ourselves these questions like, why am I not tapping into my potential? Why am I not going as hard as I could? Is it because I feel overwhelmed by life, by work, by family, or whatever? Or is it because I don't think I can make it? Is there something inside of me that keeps telling me you're not good enough? You don't have what it takes. You don't have the resources. You don't have enough money to do it. Like, we have to ask ourselves, like, why am I feeling like that? And also, we have to ask ourselves, what do I need to help me to get there? Like, is it help? Is it, what kind of resources do I need? Do I need to get in touch with someone who made it and I can ask them for advice? Or do I need to take a course online? Do I need to sign up for something? We just have to keep asking ourselves these questions instead of just remaining in the state of like disappointment or envy or just resentment because we see someone else get somewhere that we want to get to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's stay on that topic because I think that it's important that people understand that when you want something, you have to work to get it. Nothing worth having is easy to get, right?
It's a fact.
So on that note, I wanted to jump into the grinding chapter of your book, which chronicles, your student life struggles, like how stressful it is to be a student. When you get out of that high school umbrella, with the teachers that are there holding your hand, and then the student body around you that is living the same life as you, so you always have somebody that you can relate to, and then you get into college, and then college is like, getting a bucket of cold water. Basically, it's definitely not the same. So that struggle is really well chronicled in your grinding chapter, and I wanted to ask you if there was a moment where you yourself in your process, in your student life, was there a moment that you wanted to just stop everything and say, you know what, this is not worth the struggle, this is not what I thought it was going to be, this is not what I wanted? All those questions that can arise when you like not necessarily hit a roadblock, but when you're in the dark and you're like, how am I going to get out of here?
Yeah. It's interesting because I had a university education in 3 establishments. Okay, so I've been to university like in 3 different occasions. The first part was after CEGEP, and I had just been. I was really sick. I didn't know I had lupus yet, but I was really sick. So my first semester in university, I was at my lowest, like physically, mentally, emotionally. At the end of my first semester, I was diagnosed with lupus. I had to get surgery, and I had stopped going to some of my classes. It was a whole mess, but the following semester, I took a semester off, just to regroup. And then the following semester in the summer, I took a class just to get back out there, And in the fall, I went back. I was ready to take on this challenge because it was challenging for myself, mentally, physically, and all of that. It took me 4 years to graduate, to finish my bachelor's in English literature. And usually it takes 3 years. There wasn't a time where I wanted to give up because the cause was greater than I was, in a way, because I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it. It was really difficult. I was only taking 3 classes a semester, but I was still considered full-time. because of my condition. And I was even told that if I took one class a semester, I would still be considered a full-time student. But because I'm stubborn, I decided to take 3. I always had that, I was always like encouraged to keep going. So in that phase where I was at Concordia, I never wanted to give up because I knew that there was an end goal, and I wanted to prove to myself, to prove to everyone. I wanted to shame the devil. Really, I was like, stop me from getting an education. Like I'm going to show you. So I had that extra motivation to just keep going. After I finished my bachelor's degree, I took some time off just to work full time, and I had the intention of going back to school. I went to Centennial College in the fall of 2010. I finished my bachelor's in December 2009, and then I started Centennial in 2010 in the fall. And that was in Toronto. And one of my goals was to go to Toronto because I wanted to be working in magazines. I wanted to be an author. And I was like, the only way for me to get a career in magazines is to move to Toronto. Because for some reason, I thought Toronto was the land of milk and honey.
Yeah, it's the hip city.
Hip city, and that's where all the cool magazines were. My goal was to work for Fashion Magazine. That was my magazine that I had been reading for years. Like, that was my go-to. It's a Canadian publication. It was everything to me. So I applied for internships there. Like, I don't know how many times. I applied to all kinds of internships everywhere. And there were no internships available in Montreal. So I was like, I set my sights on Toronto, and I would get callbacks. I got interviews, but they couldn't hire me because back then interns didn't get paid. Mm-hmm. And I was living in Montreal, and they were in Toronto, and they were like, "This is kind of
how do we make this happen?
Like, how you gonna live? So I was like, okay, I'm gonna move to Toronto. So I was saving up my money. I was working in retail in a store that I will not mention because it does not exist anymore, and I have some opinions about that store. So I was just saving up, and that was my motivation. Like, I would work at that job, and my motivation was like, I'm saving up to move to Toronto. And then I was fired from my job. I was mad that I wasn't fired. Actually, the day I got fired, I was so happy. I was skipping. I was walking from the bus stop. I was skipping. Okay. I had some savings, and I was like, okay, I'm not where I wanted to be with my savings, but I'm going to find a way to get there. And I was doing research to find a program that would allow me to start working in magazines or in publishing as well, because I had also the goal of being a published author. I found the book and magazine publishing program in Toronto. I applied. I got in, and moved to Toronto. I was a broke student, and
are we all?
And it was hard financially. It was very hard. I was living off my credit card, and that was bad. But I was well fed, and I was well dressed. Okay. So, but it was really difficult. And what I loved about the program is that all of the students came from different areas in Ontario. I was the only one from Montreal. I was the only one from Quebec. But the thing is, like, we were all in this one place, and we had like the same goal, like the same desires, like to make it in this business and to have a career in publishing. But I was still homesick, even though I made friends and I was able to find a church not too far from where I stayed. I was so homesick, and I remember at the end of the first semester, around the holidays, like, I booked myself a one-way ticket to Montreal. I didn't book my return ticket because I was like, I don't know how to feel, because I wanted to give up. At that time, I had like a really bad flu. There was this weird virus going on. Everybody was sick, and I was sick. I was just sick, so that did not help with my decision making or whatever. And then while I was at home during the holidays, I spoke to my sisters. I was like, I'm sick of this. I'm sick sick of Toronto. I want to go home. I'm tired. And my sisters asked me, they were like, well, can you find a job in publishing in Montreal without finishing your program? And I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I can find it. And my sisters were like, come back home. Just come back home. Sell your stuff and just come back home. And like, I left my sister's place and I was like, you know what? I think I'm just going to quit. And I remember going back to my mom's and having this discussion with her. I told my mom, you know, I think I'm gonna quit school. And I thought my mom would tell me, just come on home, just grab your stuff and come on home. And my mom was like, I don't want you to think that you ruined your life. And I was like, well, dang, well, I guess I'm not gonna quit. So I bought a one-way ticket back to Toronto, and I, you know, continued my studies and finished the program. But I really wanted to quit. I wanted to quit. I was tired. I was tired of being broke, tired of being homesick. Like I did make friends. I had like a routine. I would like work out, do my stuff or whatever, but it wasn't fulfilling. Like, and at the end towards the end of my studies, because it was only 2 semesters. And towards the end, like each student has to find an internship, you know? And throughout the program, we were able to meet a lot of people that work in the industry, and we made a lot of good contacts. So everybody could find an internship and actually have an opportunity to get hired. So that was a possibility to get hired in the magazine. And I had this opportunity to do an internship out at home. And there was probably like 99% chance that I could get hired after that. But I told myself, what's the point of being successful and not have anyone to share the joys of that with?
Yeah.
What's the point of being successful in my career if I don't have my family with me, if I don't have my loved ones with me, if I don't have my crew, if I don't have my homies? I'm like, what's the point? So I was able to find an internship in Montreal, and I moved back.
That's amazing. That's amazing. It makes you realize the value of sacrifices. When there's something that you absolutely want, like what are you willing to do to get there? What are you willing to leave behind to make space for that thing?
Yeah.
And it's amazing that, you know, you found the courage not only to keep going to school while you were sick, then move to another province to get a degree, which you probably could have done here, but you know, you had a specific need, and that was where you could get it. Mm-hmm. And then take the decision to come back from where you were, where you thought, like in your head, Toronto was where you could make all your dreams come true. And then throughout the weeks and throughout your both semesters, and talking with your sisters, talking with your mom, and reevaluating yourself, you were like, you know what? It would be better for me to just come back home and build from home what, you know, with what I've already gathered in terms of studying and everything, and you know, get that internship that I need, but in Montreal, and then be comfortable with that decision, because sometimes you're kind of like torn between, oh my God, should I stay? Should I go? Like, what am I doing? Am I going to be able to find the same opportunity? Yeah. And sometimes just going from one place to another, you go through a shift, and then you start having doubts, and then you start being discouraged, and you start to question yourself and overthink, basically, like we said before, you know, overthink everything. So it's amazing that you stuck to it, and then every step that you took brought you even closer to this moment now, where, you know, you're soon to be a published author.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice that in a way I've come full circle from studying book and magazine publishing to becoming a published author. And in 10 years to see that shift. I mean, 10 years is a long time. And there were moments where I second guessed my decision of coming back to Montreal. And there were many instances where I was telling myself, where would I have been had I stayed in Toronto? Like, who knows? Maybe I would have been like an editor still at home. I would have been this, I would have been that.
Yeah.
And there were times where I never regretted coming back home because that was the greatest feeling to me in the world. Coming back home, my gosh. And it's so weird because I find it really funny. The morning I left, it was April 4th, 2011. It was 6 o'clock in the morning. And that morning there was like snow falling, but really light snow, and the sun hadn't come up yet, so it was still dark. And I took a cab all the way to the bus terminal. I had like all my luggage. Like it must have been quite a scene, but I had like all my luggage, and on the cab, like the radio was playing "It Was All a Dream." I was like, you can't make this up. Like, you can't make this up. And coming back home was the greatest feeling. It was a relief. But the hardest part was being back home.
How so?
Because I was living by myself in Toronto. I was like, I had my space. I was like, yo, this is the life. Like, they have been broke, but I was doing
that taste of independence.
And then coming back home to my mom's, it was very difficult. It was very challenging because I had tasted that freedom. And it was very challenging. And although I was doing an internship in Montreal, and that internship allowed me to do so many great things, like to really to become an online editor and to have a team, to become a leader, and creating projects, and just being proud of myself of the work that I was doing, and to see how everything I had learned in Toronto was actually useful. And I could say that I was one of the few people from my program who was actually able to work in publishing, because a lot of students had given up. A lot of students were saying stuff like, "Oh, this program is useless. What we're learning we probably won't get jobs." Blah blah blah. And I was not on that track. I was like, "Yo, I hauled my ass from Montreal.
I'm doing this.
I'm doing this, and I'm gonna get me a job. Like, by all means necessary. Okay, by the grace of God, I'm gonna get me a job. I don't care what you saying, but I'm coming out of this with a job. All right." So I was really proud of that and grateful, and also it's by the grace of God that I was able to find an internship and to be able to apply everything that I learned and to put it into practice. And to me, that was amazing. But I was also struggling with the fact that I wasn't living on my own anymore. Like, I was back at my mom's, and I was an adult, I was living at my mom's after living by myself for 7 months. And it was a really difficult adjustment.
Yeah, well, listen, trust me, I know. I know. I wanted to wrap up and take the time to bring everything to a close. And I think that the best way to do it is really focus, end the episode with a focus on what is the most important thing for you, which is the love that you have for God. And throughout this whole episode and throughout our discussion, you bring back, not bring back, there's always a mention in everything that you say, everything that you do. You talked about how you kind of rediscovered your faith as well when you were going through a whole slew of different things all at once. So I wanted to ask you, in what moments throughout your adventure so far did you find yourself challenging your faith and it challenging you back?
there were a lot of moments. I remember like being in Toronto, um, very broke, and like I knew that God had led me to this point in my life, you know, like he planted this dream in me, and he would provide the means to make it happen. But it was such a struggle, so I was kind of wondering, like, is this really where I need to be? Like, why did you allow me to be here if I'm gonna struggle like that? And I was like, did I make the right decision? Like, did I kind of overstep or do something like out of your will to be struggling
Mhm.
with that? And I have moments like that now with, you know, sometimes my career or my love life. I'm like, okay, like I'm doing all the right things, Lord. Where is
Hello.
he? Where is he? Where are you at? You know, like I have moments, you know, to this day, like, and I think I'm always gonna have moments where my faith challenges me to trust God despite the circumstances, despite the struggles, or despite the weight. Or sometimes, you know, with things that happen with my family, I've lost some loved ones over the past 2 years, and it hurt. You know, you pray for them to heal, like when they're sick, and the healing doesn't come in the way that you expected it to be, you know? And
Yeah.
that hurt, and that kind of challenges my faith because I'm like, but God, I prayed, but God, you know, I spoke to you, I asked you,
Hoping,
I was hoping, you know, and it didn't happen. So it challenges my faith, but it doesn't, like, how can I say this? These things are there to make me stronger, and to think that, you know, God is not an ATM. You know, you pray for something and you
it doesn't come out right away. Exactly.
not like that. It doesn't work like that, and that's something
Yeah.
you learn when you have a relationship with God. Like having a relationship with God is just not like following rules. It's about it's like this constant conversation you have with a friend, the
Hmm.
time you spend with a friend, you know, the quality time you spend with a friend, asking questions, and um, hearing back as well. It's not a monologue, it's a dialogue
Yeah.
constantly. And
Yeah.
you learn things, you get to know God better as you spend more time with him, and he
Hmm.
will reveal things to you um, in different situations. You know, he will strengthen you in the lowest places, and when you have like victories, he reveals himself to you in another way. So, you know, I'm my faith challenges me all the time, and it challenges me to keep going. You know, and that's one thing that I strive to do, just to keep going, no matter
Yeah.
what happens. You know.
It's definitely something that's really important, and it's one of the basic principles of being spiritual and having a relationship with God is to um, know take the time to ask,
Mm.
take the time to pray, and be open to hear, see, and experience the answer. Because, like you said, like God is not an ATM. You can't ask for something and expect it to happen right away. You can't. Sometimes, you know, things won't happen purposely because you need to prepare other stuff to make space for that. You know, so definitely faith. Having a genuine faith
Mm-hmm.
should challenge you. It should make you question things. It should make you reevaluate and um, refocus yourself and make you recenter yourself in your relationship with God and you know take it all in stride.
Yeah.
And I love the way that you revel um, in that relationship that you have. How you find the strength to say I have faith that this will go this way, or I have faith that God will make things happen the way it should happen. What is one thing that you wish someone had told you about religion and spirituality, and how to create a godly relationship?
Well, I wish someone had told me about the relationship aspect, because when we think about religion, we really think about like a list of do's and don'ts, like do this or don't do that, or if you do this, you're gonna get that. And
Yeah.
it's there's so much more than that. Yes, there's the word of God. Yes, we're called to abide to God's commandments, but the view that a lot of people have of religion is that God is this mean, like, authority that's ready to strike whenever we do something from the don't list, you know?
Something wrong.
Exactly. But in the relationship aspect, there's this, I don't know, there's this bond that's created between ourselves and God, where, like I mentioned, like you get to know God as like the more you spend time with him, the more you get to know him, and the more you get to know yourself.
Yeah.
When it comes to spirituality, a lot of people can say, "Oh, yeah, I'm a spiritual person. I'm not religious or whatever," because they don't want to abide to one religion or the rules or the I don't know, the concepts of one religion. But we're all spiritual beings having a human experience. Like we're spiritual beings. Okay, so there's this spiritual connection that we long for. Like there's a saying, there's a God-shaped hole in your heart. That that means that's something that God can fill. Like as a spiritual being, there are things that you will long for that material things cannot provide. So yes, a lot of people say they're spiritual because they recognize that they are a spiritual being looking for something that can satisfy them, something that's not of the material world, that's not like tangible or physical. But if you combine like the spiritual aspect to the religion, and when I say religion, when you think about like God's commandments, like love your neighbor as yourself, you know, things like that. I mean, I think these two composites, when they're put together, they allow relationship with God to make more sense, because a relationship with God has different like aspects. I think there's this willingness to obey His commands, to follow um, the steps that He has created for us, the spaces that He has created for us. But there's also the spiritual longing to be in His presence. You know, something that nothing else can fulfill.
I feel like the conversation went really well, and the listeners will get the opportunity to learn more about being alpha females for women, supporting alpha females for men, and they'll get to know more about you and about themselves, hopefully as well, through this journey. So maybe just to wrap up, can you give us, a timeline as to when your book is expected to come out, or what are other projects that you have that are coming on that we can look for in the near future?
Well, we're in the final steps of the production for the book. Hopefully in the fall, the book will be ready to be published. There's, of course, the podcast coming out with the episodes. And I plan on writing more books, fiction novels, and hopefully in the next couple of years to create more content, either for like online or any other type of interesting media, like maybe let's say script. Maybe why not?
Why not?
So I'd like to keep writing for sure for different types of platforms. So yeah, that's the goal.
That's an amazing goal, and that's really a great experience, a great life experience that you're creating for yourself, and we appreciate that. So for this is the end of the first episode. It was an immense pleasure to be the moderator for this um, introductory moment with Linsay, and you can definitely expect to see more of me as the podcast grows and gets more shaped. Linsay, any last words that you want to share?
I hope you guys get on this crazy journey with us and fasten your seatbelts and have some fun. And I just want people to engage in conversations outside of the podcast. And after reading the book as well, the book is meant to just help people have maybe difficult conversations with themselves and other people around them,
Yeah.
and to relate to other people's experiences and just to exchange and share thoughts. So that's the whole purpose of this book, of this podcast, and I hope everyone participates and enjoys it.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. The links for the blog and the podcast will be available in the episode details, I imagine. Or if not, watch out for our publications on social media. So on this note, everyone, I wish you well. I wish you a great evening. Enjoy your day and make the most of it. Do something that you're not used to. Do something different. Challenge yourself and take one more step towards being an alpha female and share your chronicles with us. Thank you.
Thank you.